If in the coming weeks you're doing a marathon, half marathon, or any race, and you're feeling a certain amount of anxiety before that race, I just wanted to share some tips that have helped me and some of my runners over the years. You do all this training, and if you let anxiety in too much, it can impact your performance. So, if you're moving towards what I call planet marathon, imagine a planet and its gravitational pull. As you get closer to it, it starts to influence what you do. So the last couple of weeks, when you're getting near, like I am at the moment, near to, as I'm making this video, to London Marathon, the gravitational pull of that event starts to influence my thinking, my emotions, and my feelings. And a lot of the runners I coach, this starts to happen. And one of the tips that I give them is to be aware of this, because awareness helps you a lot. Then when you start doing certain training runs 2 weeks out, there is a big likelihood that if you're very nervous, you may do something silly, particularly the last couple of long runs. Sometimes runners will run them too hard, much too quick. They want to see what's under the bonnet, see if they're ready. Now, some of your training should be like that, but the dosage has to be right. If you go out and run 17 miles flat out, there's going to be a recovery on that. There's going to be wear and tear, and you've got to ask yourself, is the lemon worth the squeeze in that scenario? Training is building up capacity. Racing is showing what you've got. If you're at this later stage in your training, most of the capacity for this specific race should be built up. You are just sharpening the saw, not creating the saw. Anxiety can make it feel like that, but if you've done the training, most of that's in the bank. If you haven't done the training, or that's what's causing the anxiety, you don't feel you've done enough training, you haven't got a time machine, you can't go back in time. You just have to work with what you've got. It's the harsh reality. So trying to cram it like you might have done an exam at school isn't going to work. So that's a number one tip. Also, remember that there's always going to be a certain amount of fatigue in marathon training. You're building up your body to get used to dealing with fatigue, and you're building up fitness. And throughout your training, that is a kind of balance you're having with ultimately freshness as well. So building fitness, dealing with a certain amount of fatigue, and then getting the freshness right. And what I say to a lot of my runners is, imagine that from a fatigue point of view, that you're digging a hole, right? But that hole never needs to be so deep that at any time you can't get out of it. If you didn't build any fatigue into your training, then when you went to run 26.2 miles, your body's going, hang on. But if the hole's too deep and you can't get out of it, then you're in a bad place. So a big part of my job as a coach is that iterative process with the runner. My runners get fed up with me, I think. How was it today? How are you feeling? This sort of thing. Really ascertaining the amount. I can see the amount of fitness, i.e. the improvements, or not. And then from them, I get a subjective view of their fatigue, and we kind of work out where we're at. As you get closer to the race, obviously we're all aware of tapers. Now, I see a lot of runners on social media in 4 or 5 weeks, oh, thank God for the taper. If you're feeling like that, you've probably pushed it too hard. A lot of my runners don't have massively long tapers. Logically, they breed anxiety. Long as you've got the dosage right of your training, you shouldn't need a massively long taper. It will depend on the runner, but as a broad stroke, you shouldn't need a massive taper. You will need one to create this freshness. As you come into the last week or 2 weeks, freshness becomes the main thing to reduce fatigue levels that you've been building up, if done correctly at a correct level, and fitness levels. Runners are always paranoid about dropping fitness. but your body is in complete flux and change all the time. What you've got to realize is your body is quite lazy. So I'm sitting in this chair now. If I sat in this chair all day, every day, I wouldn't be able to get out of this chair because my body would drop below whatever effort I put in, because it will do the bare minimum. It wants the maximum return for the minimum amount of effort. So we're always embarrassing our bodies into change when we're training. As we taper off, runners are like, oh, I'm going to lose all this fitness. Now, you may lose a little bit of fitness, but the big thing now is freshness, the trade-off. So you imagine you arrive on race day, say I arrive at London and I've hammered the last week or 2 weeks to get fitter. And maybe I may even be a bit fitter. But what about if I'm 25% less fresh? The body's aching. I often give the analogy of a car. You could have a massive, fantastic engine. Imagine. Beautiful, shiny BMW with an amazing engine, and you rev it up. Sounds fantastic. But the car hasn't got any wheels. You ain't going anywhere. So you can have the engine, but if your chassis is short, you're running on no wheels or little wheels, or you're running with the handbrake on slightly, it isn't going to help you much, is it? So you've got to put your faith in the fact that over the 13, 16, 18 weeks that you've trained, you've built up a lot more fitness than when you started. And even if a little tiny micro amount of fitness drops back, it is more than compensated with the levels of freshness. This helps control that anxiety, because some of that anxiety is, oh my God, I've been so used to running this much, and then suddenly it starts to literally taper off. The brain, your monkey mind, your ego's like, oh, just think of freshness. And finally, if you're feeling very anxious, remember to control the controllables. Don't try and control the uncontrollables. Don't sit there worrying about the weather. You can't change the weather. As Billy Connolly always said, there's no such thing as bad weather, just the wrong clothes. You can control what you take to London. In my case, I'll make sure I've got the right clothes, the gels I've trained with, the shoes that I know that are going to work for me, the right socks. Talk to my son about when I'm coming up, because I'm staying with him in London. Get those logistics right so that I have to think about as little as possible. But I'm not going to think about the weather because I can't change it. I'm not going to think about what ifs that I can't change. What I'm going to do is expect the best and prepare for the worst. Be optimistic about my training. I put the training in, and the runners I coach, I like to think their training has prepared them. And the last bit is mentally preparing them. Throughout this week, the runners I've got for London, we will be meeting up on Zoom, chatting about, for those runners that want that, chatting about what their concerns, their fears are, their pacing strategy, and making sure those final details are there so they can just enjoy the day the best they can. Hopefully this has helped. If you would like more information, maybe for your next race, I have a thing called the Age Group Blueprint. It's a book, a system really, for everything I've done as an older endurance runner to keep myself moving forward in my 60s. I'm now 61. Hopefully this video's helped you. Bye for now.